Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So today I got a fun and exciting episode for you guys today because we're going to be talking all about what is in this box that came from the United Kingdom. If you know me and you know my channel, you know I absolutely love releasing and dumping arcade games that are basically extinct or never actually came out. We've done it with Castlevania the Arcade, we've done it with Akuma Mortis Immortal, we've done it with Gashan, Lethal Enforcers 3, and a couple others that I'm forgetting right now. It's just one of those things. I have a strange fascination with games that never released, especially on the arcade side of things, so anytime I can talk about them, you know I'm going to. And it is always fun for me to be able to share my collection and make sure more people can play it into the future outside of just me. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But you know full well, if you've watched my channel for years now, I absolutely love the Thrill Drive franchise. The original Thrill Drive 2, and Thrill Drive 3 all came out in arcades, never got home ports whatsoever, and they are three of my favorite arcade racing games ever made, not made by Sega. It's just one of those things. People that have played these games absolutely recognize them for what they are, just absolute classics, but they really didn't succeed that well in arcades. Sure, they got sequels, but it's one of those things. No one's ever going to mention them in the same sentence as something like Daytona USA or Scud Race or Ridge Racer, which absolutely bums me out. But I don't know if you realize or not, there is a fourth game in the Thrill Drive franchise, and that is called Crazy Streets Thrill Drive. It didn't get the number 4, it did change up the gameplay ever so slightly, and it basically did not exist whatsoever back in the day. And if you don't remember, recently, maybe a year and a half ago, I showed you a Konami arcade board that just has a full-fat PlayStation 2 inside of it. People were absolutely finding this funny, just the fact that they were able to ship a console in a big steel cage, and it was one of those things that was amusing to me, and it was something that I wanted to get to my collection because this is Thrill Drive 3, and you'll see here on this side there is a plug 1 and plug 2. This requires a specific dongle to be inserted into the side to access a security key to unlock the game, but luckily all of these pieces of hardware have been basically reverse engineered to be able to be unlocked. But that's not the case with all of Konami's arcade hardware, so what's sitting in front of you on camera right now is the I/O board for Crazy Streets Thrill Drive. It is the 4th game in the franchise, and it is basically lost to time. But more importantly, what came with this I/O board, which is important in its own right, is a security dongle that allows the game to actually be run. I'm going to get more into that later in the video, just talking about exactly how it functions, but being able to find these two pieces basically give me, quote unquote, the keys to the kingdom when and if a Crazy Streets PCB ever shows up, or if anyone actually has a hard drive and needs help with it. But if you're asking what is Crazy Streets Thrill Drive, I will show you one of the only clips I can find online. I give credit to the maker here. I tried to message them to use the footage, but it seems like the channel's been abandoned. This was over 13 years ago that they actually uploaded this. It seems like 2007 or so. And it's just one of those titles again. It's an arcade racer, and you know I love that genre. It's in the Thrill Drive franchise, so you know I'm intrigued by it. And it seems like it has a little bit of a Mario Kart aesthetic as well, because you can get power-ups in this game where you were never able to get them in any previous Thrill Drive entry. Now, this was on location test in the US in one arcade as far as my research can tell. Maybe there's more than one out there, and apparently it had like 5 or 6 cabinets made for it in Europe, but really didn't see wide distribution whatsoever. Sometimes these test build cabinets, these location cabinets, will get sold off to arcades just to basically recoup some money, and this game would have run on an arcade PCB that was nothing more than a PC in a box, and the way you would have communicated with it would be through this I/O board. It is a very simple board, but it would be required if you actually had the arcade PCB to interact with it, and again, that is important. You'll see here it was made in 2006 by Konami. It even has the modern Konami logo, so this is their later generation of hardware and everything such as that. And this was a pretty standard issue for Konami. They had so many different games that had I/O boards. Even this Python right here has an I/O board with that security key dongle attached that goes directly into the back of the PlayStation 2, so it can be controlled. So I've seen all of this hardware before and understand how it works, but the reality is there's just some games out there that I do have dumps for, but I don't have the security key for, nor does anybody else. So those games basically just sit around on my hard drive as files, and basically have to work on reverse engineering the encryption to actually get it to boot. And that is why this key here is so incredibly important. I have purchased this because I'm trying to quote-unquote corner the market on Crazy Streets Thrill Drive. If a collector ever finds a PCB and they need this to get it working, and they're not the type of collector that we would be willing to dump the game for other people to play, well, to get a copy of the security key, it's just going to cost them a 1-to-1 raw hard drive dump of Crazy Streets Thrill Drive for me to be able to help them make their arcade board work again. I know it's a little bit tricky, but it's one of those things. Sometimes you have to just basically compel some of these games into the preservation sphere, because I absolutely want to play Crazy Streets Thrill Drive, and I want to make sure if I can play it, that every single person out there in the world that would like to play it can do it as well. That has always been my prerogative on the channel. Anything I have that I can share with others that nobody else has, I'm 100% willing to do it to make sure everyone can have the same amount of fun as I do, because I totally understand not everyone hunts down rare arcade boards that have been undumped, not everyone tries to acquire things to share with others, but it's always been something that drove me nuts, collectors showcasing things that they won't let anyone else play. So I decided to collect and make sure everyone could play everything I had whenever they wanted, so long as I was able to do it. And honestly, the footage here of Crazy Streets looks like an absolute blast, pun very much intended, because the car just exploded other vehicles and I just want to check it out. Now the hard part is I still need to find the hard drive to be able to go ahead and marry to this IO board and that dongle. Basically all of these boards are just PCs in a box. If I can get a hard drive dump and figure out what computer they were using, I would be able to run it. You'll see here this is F04KEA 10. That would have been the 10th unit they made as far as actually being production. And if you watch this clip here and watch closely at the top left hand corner of the screen, that's F04UAA. U is for the US region. Everything Konami did, they regioned out with different codes. When you take a look at the dongle, you'll know that this was based in Europe. And there's been so many other games we've been able to share with others, like Castlevania the Arcade, which hilariously does have a security dongle involved in it, but there is an INI file and you can just open it in Notepad and tell the arcade game to just pretend that that IO board doesn't exist, nor does the dongle, and then the game just boots, which is absolutely convenient for our purposes. We just had to get the controls hooked up. Or other games like Akuma Mortis Immortal, a game that never actually released, just had some prototype test versions out there of a finished game on location test. Luckily this didn't require any security patching whatsoever. It didn't require a security key because that was never actually done for the system. So this has allowed us to do stuff like actually share games like this with different people. And why the security dongle is so important is down to another Konami game, Cooper's 9. If you've never heard of it, I really wouldn't blame you. Another game that got very bad distribution, but did see an actual release. Now, I have Cooper's 9 sitting on my RAID array, ready to play as soon as it's possible. Other people do as well. This has been dumped and out there for a while, but the problem is we don't have the security key to actually run the game, and hilariously the entire game is just one bin file, so it must unpack itself at some point in time at runtime or an installation to the actual board, and then you need that security key to actually run anything within the game in and of itself. There's an executable and a bin file. If you try to run the executable, you just get a warning message that the security dongle is not present, and that's as far as it will go. And I have no idea if Cooper's 9 is a good game or not, but it is an arcade light gun game made by Konami, so you know full well it's something I do want to play and want to be able to share with you. And that's why it's so important to find these security dongles, because if you have them, then you can dump the chip, get the code, and basically give the game the response it's expecting. It's basically just kind of like a combination, for lack of a better explanation. You need to put the combination in correctly to unlock the lock. You need to give the game the right security key response for the game to execute its code. So when and if a Crazy Streets Thrill Drive board actually shows up, having that security key is going to mean I'm able to run it if I can acquire the board and it doesn't come with it, or if someone else has the board and doesn't have the security key, they can come to me. I can help them get it running for them in their original hardware. All they would have to do is dump the hard drive and send it my way, so I can take a look at it along with my Discord. We can get it controllable and running for everybody, and that is why I pick up stuff like this. This one little key one day may end up meaning that Crazy Streets Thrill Drive can be preserved and made playable for anyone out there. Or maybe the thing is just completely lost, no cabinets exist anymore, and I just have a fun cigarette lighter car attachment looking security key key for my collection, we may never know. And I can't find any other Konami arcade board that seems to use this specific I/O either, so if you've seen this before, do leave me a comment down below. But this is kind of what happens when you're trying to collect rare arcade games and you're trying to share them with people and dump them and preserve them. Sometimes you end up with a security key and I/O board before you actually get the game in and of itself. But I do know that there could potentially be one at a French summer camp. I've actually contacted a few different French collectors that are going to drive there this summer after they call, of course, and ask if they can visit and see the game, and if it does exist, maybe we can make a deal to have that hard drive dumped and be playable for everyone. But I at least have the security key now, so when and if we get a raw hard drive image off of Crazy Streets Thrill Drive, it can be made playable, and then all 4 games in the Thrill Drive franchise can be preserved and enjoyed into the future. Or I just have a small box that I'll tuck in the back of my closet and forget forever. But we're done. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Bye bye.